Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter. That is Tara. We talk about TV shows here. The year is 2021 and the name of the show is Babylon 5. This is season 2, episode 17. It's called Knives. So full spoilers for the episode as always. And I suspect that the knives in question can be found in one's back when betrayal happens between friends.
So theatrical.
Well, we have Londo and his very theatrical friend. They're both very theatrical together in this. Partly because of what they wear, obviously, just because the Centauri garb is so regal anyway. But you got the sticky uppy hair. You got trials by combat. You've got a lot of formalities and all sorts of things, but we'll
even
get
their whatever the drinks that they have, the goblets they drink out of are so ornate.
Silly big goblets. Yeah. I did feel a little bit of cheapness because they looked very light and plasticky, and even the sound effect, which I'm not even sure if it was like a Foley sound effect, because I feel like if it was a Foley sound effect, they'd have picked something that sounded better than just the sort of hollow kind of sounding, like, you know, that sounds like it weighs nothing. It does not sound expensive.
It looks like before this it was used to wrap a chocolate bunny.
Which isn't a big deal, but it was stuck out a little bit. So Tara, of course, last week got me very excited for this episode because she accidentally watched some of it and then said that she was glad that she had to switch, and that the episode we did last week ended up being much better than this one. So I came into this fully excited.
I do actually think it's a pretty good episode. I think the beginning is a little bit like, okay, why'd he do that?
Sure, yeah. I think that it obviously is not as good as last week's episode, but I mean, it's not. I mean, last week's episode was maybe the best episode of the show so far. So you know, it's a bit of a unfair comparison. Like, very few things
Sure.
we're going to live up to last week's episode. So I do think it is a low key episode, but there are some interesting stuff in here. I particularly think that this episode might be stealthily setting up Veer as one of the most interesting characters on the show. I see a lot of story in him now, and a lot of, so the entire premise of, so there's two plots, right? One is, of course, Londo and his old friend who shows up. What's his name? Urza Jado. And then the other plot's with Sheridan and some weird thing that happens to him. We'll talk about that.
Some ghost.
Kind of, yeah.
That's why I wasn't really into it the last week when I accidentally watched most of it. I was like, I don't know about this ghost stuff. I'm sure there's going to be some sci-fi explanation, of course, but
yeah, it's less ghost and more just the type of alien race that it is. You know, transports this way, but the Centauri stuff was definitely the more interesting side of things, and it was a bit of character building for Londo. It was kind of this sort of check before the end. It let us see that not all Centauri feel the same way he does. In fact, this eventually leads to a conflict with his old friend, who is so opposed to the regime that's sort of taking power right now and all the shady tactics that they're using, that he's horrified when he finds out that Londo has anything to do with them. But when I talked about the Veer, like, the reason why I get so interested in this, because I sort of, because we watched this yesterday and we had to push the recording back, so I was skimming through it again, and the opening of the episode where Londo's with Veer and they're talking about Centauri singers in opera or something, and they're singing songs to each other, and they're having kind of a good time. There's like a friendship building between them, and then that's when this old character comes in. I kind of felt like this Jado character, he was kind of like this warning for what Veer could become one day by being associated with Londo. And I don't suspect that he will become exactly this. I think Veer ultimately, at least I hope, will be sort of the more happier outcome of someone who is able to survive Londo and doesn't get pulled down because of his association with him. But it felt like everything with this character Jado, where they're so happy to see each other, they're drinking together, they're talking great, and it's not until after a good bit of bonding where he eventually admits that he's in some trouble, that the regime is trying to like label him a traitor, and it's going to dishonor him and his whole family, and he wants Londo to speak out on his behalf. And when Londo says he'll do what he can, you believe him. I don't think he's holding back. He's very intentionally doing it. It's not until he actually contacts Lord Rifa, who's the sort of the main Centauri that we've seen him interact with, who's like, yeah, he is a traitor. He's getting too much trouble. He's up in our business. We're going to put a stop to this. And it's, and Londo, to his credit, does stick up for his friend and says, no, I'm going to stick up for him. Don't you forget, the only reason why you're in power is because I did what I did, because I have the connections I have. Like, this was me. He is willing to stick up for his friend. And admittedly, you do expect that eventually there's going to be a clash at some point where, he goes to this party that Jado set up, and Jado wants to announce like their alliance in front of everyone, so it'll spread back to the home world and it'll sort of create a bit of a schism. And Londo feels that because he's already had this conversation with Rifa, that it's already dealt with, and you do get the feeling that he believes that. Although I think as an audience we're going, I don't think it really is over, but he believes it is right now. He believes he's done what he has to do.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting is that Jado, as soon as he hears that Londo is in any way involved with him, he's horrified and doesn't want his help anymore. And it's this idea that there's other Centauri who are morally very like set in their ways and see everything that Londo's associated with as being this criminal, conspiracy-led, in the same way that we're seeing with Earth, with all the Earth First and the section Bureau 13, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it feels like, Centauri kind of have a lot of that kind of thing going on too, as we've seen. So, and it becomes this thing where he's so, and this episode for me does a couple of things. Is that there's several points in this episode where Veer tries to talk to Londo about what's going on, and notably after Londo sticks up for his friend to Rifa, Veer says, this is one of these times I'm actually proud to be working with you. And he gets all sentimental about it. And at the end of the episode, after Jada dies, because he essentially lets himself be killed by Londo in a duel, because he knows that if he dies in this, that Londo effectively adopts his whole family, and therefore they will not be disgraced. Like they
now
would
they're
be.
all Malari.
Yeah, now they're all Malari. So, and Veer tries to use this to sort of talk some sense into Londo and say, hey, maybe you should alter your path. You've made a lot of choices. Because Londo, for the first time this season, maybe, actually, and we sort of see in his face a couple of times before that maybe he is sort of feeling like, oh God, what have I got myself into? But he's kind of always swerved back round to just be loving the accolades and loving the prestige that it's giving him. But this was the first time he's audibly said, I've made a lot of choices in the past year, and I don't know if they were the right things to make. And
yeah, his friends actually stuck up for the Narn in this too.
Yeah,
which I thought was an interesting bit of dialogue. First, he says the Narn don't want to be in war with us. Like something else, some faction of our government has forced them into this, and I don't know. It kind of got me thinking. There's also a line about the new prime minister is basically a puppet. I don't know if did we know about this new prime minister? Or emperor? Somebody had to replace the one that was killed, obviously. But have we met him already?
No, I don't think we've met him. I think
okay. They dropped a name. I didn't catch it, but
yeah, they did. I think that the point is that this guy was just kind of conveniently because he says that someone effectively get assassinated so that this guy would go to power. I think was the gist of the conversation.
Well, didn't we see the emperor die?
No, not him. No, he's talking about someone else. He brings up other. He's basically just.
I heard prime minister also, but I'm not sure.
He was basically talking about the conspiracy to get this guy in power. That's now in power.
Yeah, and calls him a puppet. And the way that the other Centauri guy on Babcom, I don't remember his
Lord
name,
Rifa?
but we've seen it before. Yeah, Rifa. Yeah. I realize now that you've said his name 16 times already.
Yes.
Anyway, what Rifa Rifa says, he doesn't seem bothered by the fact that Malari's name will also be a disgrace if he chooses to align himself with his friend.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
I would describe
even though Malari clearly has some power here, like he's used his power, like he's an important person to have.
I would describe him as mildly disappointed that Malari might be dishonored.
I don't know. He was sort of ready to be like, well, if you really want to, like, we'll do our best, but you're like, you won't be of use to us if you're disgraced. Even though like Londo has this power that he's shown them. So unless like maybe the shadows like have used this opportunity now that they know that there's a war going on and are manipulating through Londo, do you think maybe they've like reached out to other Centauri who are powerful? No?
Oh, I don't know.
Because that would make Londo kind of like expendable, with the exception of the fact that his name means something to the government.
I wasn't jumping to that. I was more saying, or I was more thinking that this showed that Rifa, even though he's like, oh, we'll do our best to like protect you if you align with him, but honestly, like that may be just jumping under the bus kind of thing. It does kind of sound like, at least to him, he sees Londo as ultimately disposable. That okay, yeah, he was a means to an end with whatever resources he seems to have, but they're more concerned about being in power and taking the Centauri, republic to where they want it to go and be, all those things. What is interesting about that, though, is that Londo is the one. Let's just assume for a second that Morden and the Shadows haven't get in touch with anyone else. And I don't think, it's an interesting theory, but there's nothing to suggest that they have.
It popped in my mind, like, if they were willing to just, like, let Malari or Londo, like, fizzle out as another traitor, then, like, maybe it's because they don't need him. But
they also don't know about the Shadows. They don't know how Londo did anything. So, like, we have to make a few leaps to sort of get to that point. Don't get me wrong. If they tell us later that like Morden went to another Centauri or Rifa or whoever and has been making more connections, it wouldn't shock me. But
it doesn't seem like he's left the station though. I guess he could have, but like the way
Morden,
the way Garibaldi talks about him, like, oh, he's been here for a long time.
No, they said that he's coming and going constantly.
Oh, never mind then.
Because he was about to leave again when they grabbed him last episode. But no, but let's say for a second this did happen, and Londo ultimately was more disgraced in the eyes of the Centauri Republic, because this would all be happening independently of whatever deal he's got with Mordor and the Shadows, right? The question I would have then is that now that, because obviously we know that Londo is being used as a puppet by Rifa because of his resources, and we also already consider him to be used as a puppet by the Shadows because they just want to instigate this war for their own, gains and purposes to win this ultimate war that they want to wage on everyone.
Mm-hmm.
The question is like, if Londo went to Morden after being disgraced, say, and said, I need your help to prove that, I'm still dominant, that I still have my resources, do something to show the Centauri that I should not be trifled with, effectively. Like, my question is, would Morden and the Shadows even care about helping him now? Now that they've started the war and now everything's going, would they care? Would they actually go out their way to help him?
I don't think the war is the end game, though. I'm sure they have some other big picture in mind.
They do,
so maybe.
But I wonder, like, do they need anything more specific from Londo and the Centauri? Maybe they do. Obviously, there's stuff we've just not seen yet. But I'm just, at this point, I'm thinking, like, would Mordor and the Shadows just drop Londo as well, and therefore Londo would have essentially achieved nothing? He'd just be in a worse place than he started.
Right, yeah. So he thinks that he has, because he's getting all this, like, prestige, and his name means something now, that even his friends who are in trouble are coming to him, that, he has power, but ultimately he has none because he can't even help a friend.
Yeah, and well, it never goes the way we've been talking about, like, and theorizing that it could have done. Ultimately, that part is still true, is he couldn't help his friend. Not really, not in the way that he wanted to, not in the way that mattered. I mean, yeah, he gets to help his family now, but, at great sacrifice. And I think it's interesting to me from a storytelling beat that the reason why we never get to see what happens if Londo's, like, like friendship with this Jado, and his loyalty to the Centauri Republic and Rifa and the Shadows, if that was tested and all the outcomes that could come from that being tested and possibly what decisions he makes, the only reason we don't get to see any of that is because Jado is a proud man with ethics that once he finds out what Londo's been doing, he just can't align with them. He can't trust them. He can't go along with them. It's because of someone...
he offers him the sword first.
Sure.
It wasn't that the gesture, like I give you this sword so that you join my family or something, and then he says I can't take it, and then he throws it down and says trial by combat.
No, because he finds out first, and then he says I was going to give you this, and he brings it out in the box.
Oh well, I clearly remember him saying like that. Londo saying I can't accept your gift.
Oh, I think he did. No, I think you're right. I think he did say that, but I don't think it wasn't before. Because the sword in the, because when he brings it out, it's this bittersweet thing where he's like, I was going to give you this. I was going to, it's got a really sad
I hate it when people do that. Where they give you like a gift and then they tell you all the things that they were thinking about getting you, and they're like, oh, I would have liked that. I would have liked that better.
But I think that's a dramatically really good point, because Londo is, he's constantly made the wrong choice. He's constantly done ethically and morally shoddy things for his own goal, for his own gains. And his friend, his oldest friend, seemingly someone who is such a close friend to him, stood his ground at the second that he was like, no, I can't, be party to this. I can't believe you're involved with this. Like, I don't want your help anymore. It's someone who's so strong-willed in their beliefs, and for that to be someone who is friends with Londo, who then rejects Londo, I think is a really powerful moment and statement. Which actually reminds me that Veer, another good Veer scene this episode, which is earlier on when Londo was, when he's waiting for his buddy to show up and he's like getting the drinks ready, and he's talking about how it was the good old days, we were in our our college years and we were dueling and we were doing this and that and blah blah blah, and Veer just like starts spitting fire. He's like, every generation of Centauri always remembers how great things were, and they always want to go back to the glory days, which has been Londo's whole thing this entire show, and it's what we've seen from Lord Kiro, it's what we've seen from other, prominent prominent Centauri, but notably not Veer, notably not Jado, and it's doing the same thing that it's done with the Narn, what it's done with the Minbari. It's making it very clear that none of these races are just one attitude. They all have their own, at least two-sided like debate, if not more than that, and it's making them all more fleshed out.
Well, I think Veer is also just part of a different generation who's like, not caught up in the nostalgia of the past, but instead looking towards what the future could be. Yeah,
I think that's a fair point, and yeah, I think this did a lot for Veer. I think Veer's story in this, like, it's planting a lot of seeds that he is like the true, like, maybe that'll be the thing that the one good thing Londo will do before his time is up is that he'll make sure Veer can do the right thing. He'll be there to let Veer make his own choice and ensure that he will get to.
Maybe Veer will be emperor.
I'm not expecting that, but
you never know.
But
I might get like a flash forward and Veer, it's Emperor Veer.
I think it's so interesting that Veer started off as almost this comic relief character who's this kind of he's the little chubby guy with Londo who gets really uptight and like is kind of blumbering over his words and all that sort of stuff. And then we get introduced the idea earlier this season that he's getting under a lot of stress because of everything Londo's involved in and he doesn't really agree with. And then I think this episode kind of took it a step further. It's like, no, he just, like, his viewpoints oppose Londo, and he sees something good in Londo. He wants Londo to do the right thing. It makes Veer a conduit in a lot of ways for the audience, and his reactions to Londo. So yeah, I think they're very quietly like building and adding to Veer, and I feel like before we know it, he's going to be like a really strong character if he isn't already. But certainly, I I feel bad for Natoth because I think Lanier's been slowly getting some stuff as well to make him a lot more 3-dimensional and for him to have a lot more going on. I think Natoth, out of the attachés, Natoth's the one that's the least developed, and maybe she'll get her time. But
yeah, I don't think she's really had an episode yet. I mean, she's been played by 2 different people, and
well, yeah, that was way back at the start, though.
She's in the opening. Sure. Well, there was a different person in the very beginning. Calamity Jane, and then but she had a different name, and then she was replaced by someone else, an actress, and then
that's not Natoth then. That's just a different character.
No, that was a different character, but
Yeah.
It was also just Jakar's attaché, but she couldn't like handle the prosthetics or something, so they brought someone else in, and she only lasted a couple episodes, and then or maybe even just one, and now it's still the same character as that replacement, but it's a different actress now. Because there's so much makeup, like whatever.
Yeah, but we've had that actress in the role since like early season 1, so it's still like a fresh concern.
I don't think she's been in since season 1. I think this actress has only been here since beginning of season 2.
Oh really? Okay.
I think, yeah, but we haven't seen very much of her.
She hasn't. Yeah, she's not been around a lot this season. I think she has been in season 2 for sure. She's definitely had a couple of moments with Jakar, but I don't. Yeah, we've not seen much of her.
Yeah.
Overall. So, but no.
She's not even really in the Jakar centered episodes.
But
maybe she's not fighting the war.
I really dig. I think what I like about this is this episode just exists to effectively question Londo and make Londo sort of reanalyze everything he's doing. And it's kind of sad at the end when he's like, no, I've already made these choices, I'm on this path, nothing stops this train, to quote Breaking Bad. Unlike Breaking Bad, when Walter White says that, it's this like determination because he thinks he's a badass and he thinks he's unstoppable. Here, when Londo doesn't literally say the line, nothing stops this train, but when he gives that sentiment, it's more a sadness of, I can't jump off the train. I can't stop the train. I can't. I'm starting to wish I could.
Emotion, yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to wish I could, but I don't think I can. And that sadness is we like Londo. We want him to do the right thing, and
of course we do. Yeah.
Sadly, his story in season 2 has been that of tragedy and villainy and. And I think they've handled it very well. I think everyone's reactions around him. I think that great stuff with Garibaldi being kind of standoffish with him, Veer's reactions to him, obviously everything with Jakar being furious at him. All of it's been really well handled. So I think this entire plot is pretty good.
I think so too. I liked all the additional lore we get and the ceremonial stuff too.
Yeah, and the idea that these 2 families were close and they were sparring partners, and there was more specific lingo, but I didn't remember all the new phrases because it's a lot to take in. But yeah, no, so it was good.
I wonder, since like I brought it up,
yes,
if the shadows are like working with Centauri government, not just through Londo, if they'd also be working with like if everything is just building towards the shadows, like taking over different, like if the Psi Corps or Earth Force get like someone else in the, like another shadows person there too, because isn't their ultimate goal to come back and not be around when Vorlons are there? Like, isn't that their big end game, is to maybe defeat the Vorlons, their ancient rival? So if every faction is like at war with each other, then they'll be too weak to stand up against them if they come back. I mean, that's what Caution.
I don't think it's just
the we're talking about.
I don't think it's just the Vorl. I think it's everyone. They want to defeat everyone.
They're just
much
evil.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I don't think. I mean,
like the Dark Lord.
I could buy the Shadows having reached out to maybe Bureau 13 or something like that. But I think given like the reaction to any of the teases of this stuff from either the Minbari or the Narn that we've had, I don't really buy that. Like they're working with anyone on those sides of the conflicts.
Well,
I mean,
the war factions rising on the Minbari side.
True, yeah. Maybe they don't fear the shadows the same way that Delenn and the others do. Maybe, or maybe some of them just don't care. Some of them think, oh, maybe the shadows could be friends now. Maybe.
Yeah. Ooh, that makes them kind of like Saruman.
Don't. You got people in comments talking about Lord of the Rings and all sorts of shite.
How dare you?
It's awful. It's awful.
How dare you?
How dare you bring stupid hobbits into...
You're the one who brings up Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which has nothing to do with anything.
As a throwaway gag once in a while.
At least Tolkien is like influential. And good.
All right. All the hot takes. Sure. I wouldn't be surprised if...
Slow this podcast down to a stop.
I wouldn't be surprised if the shadows have made allegiances, even if the allegiances they've made don't know who they're I mean, because not even like Londo knows what he's really dealing with.
No.
So have
just
they
a
made...
magic man.
The only reason why I would say I don't buy that they've done much of it, or at least maybe not yet, or maybe if they've done it, it's been more recent, is because the entire journey to get to Londo was about picking the right avenue. It was about picking the right person and the right door into the conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So I think because of that, I don't see them having like multiple cells and people that they've infiltrated and like convinced to work with them. It felt like Londo was very important. Like they found the right person that they could manipulate. They found the right person that they could take his beliefs and goals and use them against them and use them to orchestrate and puppeteer them into whatever they want. And I think that was a really important like thematic beat in season 1. So that's why I don't necessarily think that they've done this to like 50 people in different factions and different races and stuff around the world or around the galaxy. So, but again, though, if it turns out that they've sort of eventually done someone else like that, whether they've someone in Psycho or something, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be like, I'd be like, oh, now it connects to their stuff. Because right now it's kind of disconnected. Right now, Bureau 13 and everything they're doing is somewhat disconnected from all the Great War. I'm sure eventually they're going to, merge together in some way, but, so, but hey, that's
yeah. I was just thinking like maybe all these, villainous sides of each conflict are being manipulated. It's all actually part of one big conflict. Which,
I suspect it will be one big conflict eventually. I suspect we're going that way.
Well, I mean, there's multiple seasons left. There's room for multiple different villains. If they wanted to have like I don't know, maybe the Shadows thing is done in like a season and then they can deal with Psychor after.
I don't think so, just because everyone always talks about this being one big story, at least till the end of season 4. So I suspect that the Shadows are going to be the prominent big bad till at least then.
Well, in any case, do you want to talk about Sheridan's story and his ghost?
Well, let's talk about first of all that they have a baseball field on Babylon 5.
Seems like an awful waste of space. It's like really big.
I mean, yeah. I think sometimes we forget the context of how big this station's supposed to be, because they talk about how it has 250,000 people on it, and it's essentially a city in space. And in the context of a city, a baseball field's not that big.
Yeah.
But yeah, we think of spaceships and space stations as like space is at a premium. You like every square foot is important. You can't waste any of it.
Yeah. But I like all the robots they have to pick up the balls that get hit. And it's got a nice view of space. It
does. I feel like it'd make it hard to see the ball, like where it's going once you've
too many stars.
But Garibaldi tells him about the B5 triangle, which is just a weird part of the station that people like disappear in, so they kind of nicknamed it after the Bermuda Triangle.
It's so funny how they treat Babylon 5 as like this big mysterious place of all these different legends, and it's like, how old is this station? Like,
it's like
not that old.
It's like 2 or 3 years old. Yeah, it's not. it was pretty new when we started the show at the gathering.
Yeah, we've just explored the triangle section of the ship.
Is the Bermuda Triangle where people disappear? Is that like right in the middle of the brown sector?
I think they said gray.
Is it gray? Okay.
Yeah, gray sector.
All right.
Brown sector's where all the airlocks are, obviously.
That's where everything expels. I agree. Yeah. I agree. Yes. That's where all the sewage system works are on the station. Yeah, actually, that's what we never see. So we get those exterior shots of Babylon 5, we don't see the big stream of poop coming out one end, where because it has to be flushed out somewhere.
Yeah, there was a show that talked about that, the new one on HBO. It was supposed to be a comedy, but it wasn't really very funny, unfortunately.
Now, I know the comments are going to be like, they probably recycle it. They've got, like, you know, and sure. Yeah, I agree. Sure. I admit that that's probably what's happening.
Doesn't the station spin? And in the window, we never see the planet it's orbiting?
It's facing away from the planet. It can be spinning and not...
Just spinning very slow. Okay.
They're probably recycling. I know people are going to say that, and that is probably the smart thing that they're doing. They're recycling their water. Their waste gets used in something. Fertilizer. Yeah. That's how they're Matt Damoning the science and the shit out of it.
How else are they going to grow potatoes?
Exactly. Yeah, they've got a big farm area. Yeah, they're growing stuff. But I just wanted to crack a joke about the visual of just a stream of shit. And keep in mind, 250,000 people. Would it all be... Actually, that's a good question.
And aliens.
Yeah.
Some of them have multiple stomachs.
Yeah, some of them are... A lot of those you know, I think it's like 40% or something like that are aliens. Like, do they poop the same colour? Like, would this be like a tricolour stream of... Maybe quite hypnotic?
Could be beautiful.
There could be like blue and green poop in there. There could be all sorts.
Yeah. Could be beauty in a dark place. Maybe Kosh will take Sheridan over to the poop deck for a lesson.
In space, where even your poop might be beautiful.
Touching.
And save lives, as we learned in The Martian. That documentary was fantastic. Okay, moving on. That was a joke before I guess that. Sometimes I feel like people will get the jokes and they'll try and correct me in the cut. I'm like, I'm joking. Please, people. Yes. So Sheridan encounters a dead alien who kind of has one of those like zombie reflex moments. Although, because it passes something on to him, we suspect that this is more just the entity that's inside the alien who's kind of like bringing him to life, much like a puppet, for just a moment to pass on. To transfer this alien being, which needs a host, and it all eventually ties into Babylon 4's like jumping through time. Basically, this thing needs to go through the timey-wimey area where Babylon 4 jumped, and Sheridan starts seeing visions, mostly related to his own past. You know, he sees his parents, he sees his wife's ship blow up, he sees this weird
alien creature that attacked him.
I was going to say some sort of alien pterodactyl. It was giving me pterodactyl vibes. But you know,
wings.
It was all these things from his past, but it was all meant to be clues that the being wanted to, like, you know, get to his own timeline or to his own time period. So Sheridan flies him out. Garibaldi luckily comes out after him because he knows. Do you know what I think's funny about this plot is that Sheridan is genuinely acting like a crazy man. So from everyone else's perspective, he is acting crazy for most of the episode. Yeah. And Garibaldi just kind of shrugs most of it off and just cracks little jokes about it almost the entire time.
I used to hallucinate when I was drunk. Like, okay.
Like, they come into like Sheridan's quarters after he's fired his weapon because he thinks he saw an alien try to kill him, and they come in and they got their weapons drawn because they heard it on the way there, and they see like this, you know, there was like a piece of art that he's like blown to pieces now, and Garibaldi just as he's walking out goes, "I think it looks good," or something to that effect. He makes a joke about how it looks better now, and I'm like, your commander is firing his weapon at spirits that aren't there. This should be a cause for concern.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
I like a side note. I like Franklin in this episode.
Oh sure,
he's like a good doctor in this episode. which I need him to be. I need more good Franklin.
Yeah, he's like, no, you're going to have some rest. You're not going to go gallivanting about the station doing detective work. And he's also quite fascinated. I liked how fascinated he was at the end when Sheridan had a bit more information for him. It's like, oh, this was an alien being that wanted to get out and go home, as the case may be. But that was pretty much it. I don't have a lot to say about it. It was fine. It was
there's some little nuggets in there. I like I like the stuff with Franklin. There's like a little thing about the alien that bashed its own head in that he initially got the spirit from, and how they were talking about that species, excuse me, has like a ritual where they do a bunch of drugs and like I don't know, they always have some sort of like psychoactive religious ceremonies. Like they sound like a crazy race, like crazy partying race. Sounds awesome. I don't know. It was just a cool little alien fact.
I liked Ivanova just like doing her business, and Sheridan's like trying to look busy.
She had great hair in this episode.
Sure, I don't.
I mean, they must have like a dry-by or something on the station because she looked good.
Ivanova was looking good.
Yeah, had her blowout, full bloom.
Ivanova was like, I want to make people say, I want a piece of that. That's what she wants people to think.
No, we're not doing those jokes. Remember, we tried before.
No,
I should say you tried.
I don't know. You put me on a tangent when we were talking about how good her hair looked this episode. It's like I don't have anything.
What? Like you didn't notice? Her hair looked awesome.
Well, what I was going to say is that she's on deck just doing her job as she often does, and Sheridan's just asking questions, trying to act busy and like get involved because he doesn't know what to do with himself, and she's just kind of like, everything's fine, everything's going fine, and she's just completely content. Business is running smooth.
Sheridan's acting crazy again, and someone else who knows him is sticking up for him. Like, yeah, that's fine.
Our favorite new red shirt was still in the CNC. He's still there. He's there every time we cut to this place. He gets to witness the captain's breakdown. Is he the pretty boy? Yeah, the pretty boy.
Okay.
Yes. I think I have a name for him, but they've not told his name on the show, at least not properly yet, so I'm not going to say it, but he was amusing.
He's ops guy.
In the documentary episode. He was amusing in that episode.
Yes.
So, yes. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say, but it's a little goofy, in places. It kind of feels like a silly episode plot just so that we have something funky to go on in the B plot. But there's a nice
the
sentiment.
Centauri stuff was definitely like a highlight, and this was like the filler.
Yeah, the Centauri stuff was good, and like I was saying earlier, I love that it starts off with Veer and Londo bonding, and then we introduce this actual old friend of Londo, and over the course of the episode, because we thematically set up the idea that, oh, this is about Londo's friendships, and we just he's building one with Veer. This is one of his old friendships, which is going to end in tragedy and misery, and we have Veer trying to like put him on the right path all episode.
Yeah,
like because it puts those things into your head right from the start. It really puts you in the good frame of mind to sort of like take in what it's saying about this character, about Londo, about the relationships he has with people. So that stuff is really good. But unfortunately, last week was basically, in terms of Babylon 5's own scale, last week was like a 10, and this week was a solid 7 kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think it was a bad episode.
Yeah,
I wasn't as into it last week because of the ghost story, but that's all right. And the way the friend introduces himself into the scene, I thought was kind of silly.
They should have done the
like
thing.
I'm going to murder you, and then
for the cliffhanger.
Oh, just kidding, I'm your friend. Yeah, your long lost friend.
It was basically just a more aggressive version of doing the guess who.
Trying to trick us into thinking that Londo was going to be kidnapped before the credits.
I do like the irony though that they do end up fighting by the end of the episode. There's just a little bit of a bookend to the idea.
I'm sure that's the reason why it's there.
Yeah. Well, I think the main reason is because they wanted to have the dun dun dun, and then go to the credits, and then they come back from credits. Oh, I'm just kidding. It's me, your good friend. It's my good friend Jado.
I've been thinking that you should get like some sort of Centauri wig that you can attach to your headphones. So when you put the headphones on,
Oh, I like it.
you can have the fan of hair.
Do they sell Centauri wigs? I wonder if I could get like a
Etsy, maybe.
I'm sure you get. Well, I'm sure if I just get like a mohawk wig and just kind of turn it, it'll probably have the same effect.
You can have Centauri headphones. Be awesome.
They need to be detachable though. I don't want to have the Centauri wig on like for all
I just
recordings.
put like a strip of Velcro over the top. Solved.
It's a gold idea. I can't deny it's a gold idea.
I should patent it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And let's face it, I have the exact hairline to look like a proper Londo. Because obviously the other Centauri do vary, but Londo's got that magnificent dome at the front and then the wall of hair.
Mm-hmm.
Which...
I think the dome is fake. I think he has hair. Because I've seen him at other shows. He's got like he's not bald.
Sure. Well, I wonder if it's not so much that it's fake, it's just that he shaved for the purpose of the role.
Maybe.
I mean, maybe he didn't. Maybe it has a cap. I don't know. But maybe he shaved it at the time. I mean, that's possible. Actors do that. Actors shave their heads for roles.
That's true.
Check out the hit film Alien 3 for example. You ain't hiding Sigourney Weaver's fluffy curls with no ball cap.
Charles Dance did also. Nobody talks about him. His brave head shave for the role.
It's not as brave when a man does
doctor.
it. It's not as brave when a man does it. I say this as someone whose hair is not all where it used to be. It's not as brave.
All right, well,
there
looking forward to next week.
As am I. I'm looking forward to next week's episode. And I thought, you know what? I was a little bit worried about this one, that it was going to be a much less interesting conversation than last time, but I think it went swimmingly.
This one caused me to speculate a little bit, just because I don't think Londo has the power he thinks he has, and I suspect foul play.
I mean, I suspect foul play all day, every day on this show. There's foul play somewhere. I'm sure of it.
There's definitely foul balls in this. Baseball.
Baseball joke. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
It was a high-tech baseball field, though, that you can just like give hand motions and they know not to throw any pitches.
Yes.
Whatever the robot is.
Yeah, it's like the old, I don't know what you call those ball shooter things that you have at batting cages, but it's like a futuristic version of that.
Yeah.
They're just a ball shooter, is that what you call them? I don't know.
I don't know. I've never used one.
It's one of those things, I've seen them a million times in TVs and movie shows, but TV shows and movies. TVs and movie shows. That was a wonderful
There's only one movie show. It's called Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's the greatest show of all time.
Check out our recent review of Mystery Science Theater 3000, the movie, on the Atomic Cinema Experiment, or Sci-Fi Movie Podcast, which you can find over on the newly separated Mailed to Us Movies YouTube channel. See how smooth that was? See how I took your little tangent and I turned it into just copy, baby.
Turns out it wasn't a tangent all along.
The real tangent was the friends we made along the way. Okay. That's been Babylon 5. Let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. Liking and subscribing is super important on YouTube, and it is the way YouTube dictates success. In fact, the reason why we separated the movie stuff into a separate channel is because of the way YouTube does its numbers and systems, and it's really annoying. But please do support by liking, subscribing, and commenting. And if you want to go and subscribe to the movie channel also, that'd be delightful. But they can also support us with cold hard cash, can't they, Tara?
That's right. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page, which is still patreon.com/MouthfuzzTV. And if you donate as little as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus episodes of The Ace, which is our science fiction movie review show, as well as the horror movie review show, and some stuff you get a week early or a day early if you donate $5 per month, including Babylon 5. Thank you.
Are you worried that they think that it's going to change suddenly? Someday?
Well, now we have Malphite's movies.
Sure. Nah, still one patron to rule them all.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you brought in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
It is important.
It's an olive branch, okay? It's an olive branch out of friendship. Because
Well, you're not going to catch me saying anything nice about Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Because I respect Londo. I might love Londo, but I am not full Londo.
Never go full Londo.
I will not fight Tara to the death. I wish Tara to continue to be not comrade. Was it comprade? There's a word that's not comrade that I'm trying to remember, and it's compadre. Compadre. That's the word I'm looking for. But comrade with a word too.
Yeah. Could just stuck with your gut.
Oh dear. Okay, there you go. So that's Babylon 5. Thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching the show. Just don't give away the home world.